everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Get Wealth podcast. Super excited for this episode today. Garland Harris Jr. on the show. He's a developer, investor, does basically everything in the real estate space. And I'm just now finding out also a super athlete. So thanks for coming on the show, and I'm excited to talk to you today.
Oh man, I appreciate it, man. Don't gas me though. Don't gas me.
So yeah, before we get into all like the building wealth stuff, you were just telling me you have your championship jersey behind you. You played quite a bit of sports, so college football it sounds like. Where did that all start? You just grew up playing football and went to college for it?
When I was a kid, grew up playing football, basketball. My regret is that I never got into baseball until I was older. Like past my playing years. The funny thing is I used to work security for the Houston Astros, and I ended up getting promoted to working down on the field. And I used to tell my friends all the time, man, you couldn't pay me to watch baseball. Then somebody paid me to watch baseball, and I fell in love with it. So, but yeah, I've always played sports. In high school, I was a pretty decent athlete. I wasn't a world beater or anything like that, but walked on to the football team at Prairie View. And while I was there, we won our conference championship. We were the first team in 40 years at Prairie View to win a championship. So since then, the school has been back. Last year, the team made it to the championship again, and they're in good position right now to make it back to the championship. So hopefully they can take down Dion and Jackson State and win this year, so we'll see.
Wow. That's awesome. What'd you play? What positions?
Defensive back, and pretty much I was a backup, so wasn't no world beater, but played a lot of special teams and stuff like that. So just contributed my part to the team.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that was in my high school days. That was one of my goals, was to play college basketball. And I probably could have went to community college or something like that, but I actually ended up going to Embry-Riddle. It's a aeronautical and not a technical school, but it's known for aviation and engineering. They have all the degree programs, but so I went and got my pilot license, and I flight instruct now, so I still do that, but more recently, like the last year or so, I've become obsessed with the real estate world. So I'm kind of not parting ways with it, but I'm definitely seeing this as more of like a long-term. Did you use your college degree?
Yes, my college degree is in architecture.
That works.
Ever since I was in the 7th grade, I wanted to be working in the field of architecture. I used to draw and build stuff all the time. I used to build model cars when I was younger. And my sisters used to break them, so I get really mad at them. But I used to build like model airplanes. I just loved building stuff and drawing. And then one day my dad, he runs a mobile detailing business. And so one of his clients had an office in the Houston Galleria, overlooking the Galleria area in a high rise. And he had all these drawings of like buildings on his wall. And I was like, man, what do you do for a living? He's like, I'm an architect. I was like, what's an architect do? He's like, basically I get paid to draw for a living. I was like, Dad, I want to do that. So yeah, and I got interested in like real estate development when I was in like a junior in high school. I got to watch a neighborhood get built down the street from my house, entire master plan community. I watched it go from a grassy field to a community. It was crazy to see that. And so I went to college and studied architecture, got a master's in community development, and then went from there.
Wow. So let me ask you, so you do quite a bit of development, just from what I can see on your social media. That looks like a big part of your business. Are you the architect on your builds?
Yes. So I run an architectural firm, architectural design firm, Middle Housing Design Co. And so we work with a lot of other developers and investors in the Houston and surrounding areas, the designing projects for them. We do a lot of townhouses, duplexes, small single family houses, shotgun houses, things like that. We have like stock plans on our website to make it easier for developers to move faster. And then, of course, I designed the projects that me and my partner build on. My partner is actually one of my college teammates.
Wow, what a great way to vertically integrate, because
Yeah.
most architects go to school to be an architect and then, just do it for the developer, but such
Man,
a beautiful way.
yeah, well, I got hip to the game very early. I ended up working for a townhouse design firm, and we worked with a lot of developers.
Mhm.
And one day, we had this one developer who was coming into one of the exclusive neighborhoods in Houston and building this huge 3-story, 6,000 square foot house with like an 1,000 square foot casita behind it. And the houses were very modern. Like I'm talking like tempered glass railings, floating staircases, all kinds of different things like that. They were selling these joints for like $3 to $4 million, and this is like back in 2013. Yes, 2013. So the principal of the firm, he was like, "Yo, I'm gonna let you design the casita." I was like, "Cool." So I was like, "Yeah, my first project that I get to work on myself." So I laid out something for the casita. We presented it to the client. They loved it. 2 days later, they came back in and stripped all of the like design elements out of the casita.
Oh,
And I was like, I went to the principal. I was like, "Yo, why they stripped the design? I thought they loved it." He was like, "They probably took it, got it priced, figured it was going to cost too much money, and stripped it down." And then that's when it hit me. Architects don't control design, developers.
mm.
So I knew if I wanted to have a greater say in the design aspect of things, I needed to run my own projects. So that from 2013, that's when the whole master plan started. And it was like, I got to figure out a way to run my own projects.
Wow. So, okay, let's kind of just go to square one before we get too far ahead. So you play football, go win a championship, no big deal, graduate, and then now you're like an architect. So how do you go as an architect into the real estate space? Is it just that one experience? Now you're learning how to be a developer? What was kind of the step by step? Did you like do a wholesale deal first, or what was your relationship to real estate at that point?
So I ended up working for a home builder, ended up leaving them and jumping into real estate. So, and my master's program at Prairie View is called it's a Master's of Community Development. It's pretty much like real estate school.
Mm.
Uh, it's taught by brokers, and so I learned a lot about the real estate side in school, and then I tried my hand at being a realtor, and showing homes to buyers and stuff like that. That's not something I want to do. But
Yeah.
during that time, I also got into like wholesaling and stuff too. So I learned how to do a lot of, well, I was already learning how to research markets, but I learned a lot from being a realtor about like how buyers think, how that whole process goes. I learned a lot from lenders. Like lenders used to come in and do presentations all the time. And some of the realtors would be like, "I don't have time for that." I'd be like, "Please, man, these people giving valuable information. I can buy down my interest rate. I didn't know I could do that." And so I learned like all of that stuff. And I ended up going back and working for a home builder again for a couple of years. And then uh, me and some friends got together and started doing some projects on the south side of the city. And then we just kept buying more land and doing more projects. So
Okay, that's awesome. I'm really interested in like the process of starting a build, like because I know like from a further view, you find the land, then you buy the land at the right price, and then you have to develop the land. Did you already have some kind of background knowledge on this, or did your partner carry some of that knowledge? And like, didn't you need a contractor's license to do some of that, or did you hire, like, what were the kind of the intricacies of that first build?
So we already, with my real estate background, and then my business partner, he has a construction management background, so that's what he
Okay,
does.
that works.
So he handles the construction, I handle the pre-development side. So with the companies that we had worked with, we were able to kind of like everywhere I went, I asked a ton of questions. You know, they'll be like, none of this is a part of your job description. Why do you want to know this stuff? Because I want to know. You
Yeah.
know, because my whole thing was I'm sitting here like, I'm not going to be working for y'all for 25, 30 years and stuff like that. I want to run my own. So I was able to go in and kind of learn a lot of that stuff working for those companies. But even then, you know, you don't know enough until you get out there and actually do it.
Mhm.
And, you know, once we got out there and did it, you know, we made our mistakes and took our licks. And really, I feel like we were just too stupid to quit. No matter
Yeah.
what happens, we just kept going. You know what I'm saying? It was like, oh man, we didn't know this rule, we didn't know that rule, you know, yada yada yada. And once we kind of learned how the city of Houston wants stuff done, that helped us out. As far as contractor's license in Texas is not required. So we don't, now my partner and I, we don't GC our own projects. We don't want to be on a job site all day. We want to function as true developers.
Yeah.
So we outsource that to guys that we know. Could have been guys that we worked with at a previous job, or guys that I met when I was a realtor, you know, whatever, or guys that we were referred to by other, you know, builder developers in the area and things like that. So vetting contractors is definitely an experience, because we've been burned by some before. I mean, there's one guy, I can't remember the guy's name, but if I ever catch him in the street, he gets hands on sight.
Oh, man. Yeah.
He screwed up a deal, man. He almost screwed up a deal. We were able to save it, but he jumped shipped on us and screwed up a deal. So
Yeah,
we can tell you
man,
about all the painful lessons.
yeah. So what do you guys build? Is it, because I know when you talk about development, it's like almost like saying real estate, where there's so many different ways to go. Is it like a spec build? Is it a new construction? What do you got? Do you niche down? What does that look like?
So we do a lot of spec builds.
Okay.
What we build determines on the research that we've done in that area. So we just completed 2 duplexes on the south side of Houston near the medical center area. When we were buying the land, we did our research and we were like, okay, what works here? You know, and we felt like duplexes were better to build there. So we built them and we sold them, and they worked out well. We have our next project coming up is we're building 4 townhouses. It's on the northwest side of Houston. In that area, townhouses do really well. They sell for like well over $200 a square foot. I think the last time we ran our comps, they were still at like the 205s, 203s or something like that, which is really good. So it really just depends on the area for us. We're not one of those investors that kind of just sticks to one area. Like I know guys, I got clients where they only build in one side of the city. But we look for we look for areas throughout the city where we can find land that's reasonably priced, and we feel like we can go in and subdivide the lot and build multiple homes on it, because that's what we want to do. We don't like building one house per lot. We feel like that's a waste of money.
Yeah. How much more work is it to build like 2 houses next to each other than
It's really
one?
not.
It's not
really
much more.
Yeah, it's a little. Truth be told, the more houses you build at once, the better your pricing is, because you can buy your materials in bulk. Yeah, and you can stack your trades. So instead of, you know, if I build one house at a time, they coming out for that one day. You know what I'm saying? Then they come back out, you know, when we start the next one. But if I build 8 at a time, I can have them start on one slab, and then as soon as they finish that one, they can start on the next one. They can start on the next one. They can start on the next one. And then by the time we get to like the 4th slab, we got the framers out there framing up the first one. And we just stack the trades and move it all the way around, and we get better pricing and better materials and things like that.
Wow. Yeah. So you're literally working less to make more almost. It's just kind of cool.
Yeah.
So looking back with the knowledge you know now, do you think it was necessary to do one of them first and, like you said, take a few licks? Or do you think it was literally just a mental barrier of, I just need to change my mindset around what the number on the screen is, and just with the same amount of work, I would have just started with 10 builds instead of 1? Or see what I'm trying to say?
No, because this is an experience-based industry.
Yeah.
And so it's tough to get financing when you don't have a track record of what you've done. So just being out there and getting something done, even if it's just one house, will open doors for you. You know, you'll get lenders that'll start throwing you more money because, now you got a track record. You can show that you could take a project from start to finish. When we teach in our classes, I always tell people, listen, development requires a lot of hard-headedness because you'll run into stuff that you just didn't expect on every project. You'll run into things that will tear your hair out. You'll run into things that you just, most people, because they're not built to face adversity, they'll quit. And so if you're able to deliver a project, get it done, get it sold or get it rented or whatever, you are a success in the eyes of these lenders, and they will give you more money to do more projects.
Yeah, wow. And it's okay, when you're saying lenders, you go into a bank for like a construction loan, or are you using private money as well? What does that side of it look like?
We use a little bit of both. We're learning a little bit more. Now we're trying to get into using hedge fund money because we're trying to do a couple of our new goal for 23 is build to rent projects. We have some larger pieces of land that are 1 to 2 acres in an area that doesn't have any apartment complexes. And we're going to basically come in and build rental units in that area. So these are, one of the projects is like 15 units. So it's like almost a $5 million project. And we need to raise $850,000 to do the project. So we've been in negotiations with some other guys, and they're like, that's all y'all need, 850? It was like, we raised that with 2 individuals. I'm like, y'all sure? I'm like, okay. So the next project we're doing right now is a $1 million project. It's 4 townhouses. We actually have a crowdfund offering that we announced last week. So we know we could raise the money for the down payment on the construction loan. We could literally raise that, from 1 to 2 individuals. It's $200,000. But actually, I know for a fact we can raise it from 1 individual. I know a couple of people who already have it. But we decided to open the door for everyday individuals to get involved in these projects, because a lot of times they're not allowed to get involved in them because they don't have a network and they don't have the money to get into it, because you have to be a accredited investor. So the crowdfunding allows us to open those doors for them. So we found a lot of different ways, because our goal is we want to bring less money to the deal and walk out of the deal with the capital. So I think on our first deal we had to bring like $200,000 to the table. Of course, we got that money back plus an additional 100, and I think it was like 108,000. But we were like, yo, we got to figure out a way to bring that number down. So we've been working with private investors, crowdfunding. Now we're looking into hedge funds and stuff like that, just trying to figure out the different ways to attack the capital stack needed to get to a project. I'll have people all the time, they'll be like, how much money do you need to do this project? Oh, we need about $250,000. And they'll be like, that's a lot of money. I'll be like, we can raise that from like 1 individual. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, they got people out here with money, bro.
Yeah. I think that's a weird thing to wrap your mind around when you start out, is the amount of money that's out there, because it's just like a different level you're playing in. When you're dealing with single family houses and you're raising money from like your family members or whatever, that's, yeah, sure, like 250,000, that's a big investment for a lot of people. But now you're talking about a 15-unit apartment building, and you're dealing with banks that are just trying to place $100 million somewhere, and they're looking for a good opportunity. It's like, it's just relative to the level that you're in.
Yeah, right. And a lot of times people will look at the numbers. It's like, if I tell them we got a $5 million project, they think that we're investing all $5 million. I'm like, no. We might come to the table with 150 grand. And then we'll get the bank to fund it. We'll get investors to fund a portion of it. And then we'll walk away with, I think if we sold those units, because they're going to be individual houses, if we sold them individually, we would clear, I think it was 900,000 in a sale. So yeah, I think it was 900,000. And then we have another one that we was looking at. It's like a 26 unit. I think if we sold that one, it would be like 1.7 million. And I think that one's like an $8 or $9 million project. So it's fun when we start to like really get to this point, because it's like we're like, look, we got to graduate. That's what me and my partner were like. We was like, we got to graduate from these little $300,000 to $400,000 projects, which is what we were doing at first. And we're like, we got to graduate. So the next one's 1 million, then another one's 5 million, and then we're looking at another one that's like 8 or 9.
So like, let's just play like a kind of like a thought experiment. Well, if you right now you had, let's say a couple of years, whatever timeline it would take, and someone was like, your life depends on it, go build a 200-unit apartment complex in Houston. What would your process be to go make that happen?
So first, I wouldn't even do an apartment complex. I'd tell them, why would I build an apartment complex when I could build a bunch of houses and rent them out?
Okay.
And, I know a lot of people will say, well, why? I'll say, well, one of the benefits to building houses and renting them out is I can build them in phases. So 200 units might be, let's run the numbers. So 200 units, depending on what I bought the land at, let's see, if I'm going to build 200 units, I probably need at least 5 to 6 acres. I know for a fact I can get 5 to 6 acres in a part of Houston for like $4 million. Okay, so $4 million in land acquisition. On average, we're trying to build houses that are about 1,500 square feet apiece. And right now we're building for about $100 a square foot. So that's $150,000 a house, right? Mm-hmm. So say 200 units times 150. So right there, that's $30 million right there. Okay. Plus the land. So we'd probably be looking at, with soft costs and everything included, we'd probably be looking at least a $37 to $38 million project. Maybe closer to 40. So we would just build it in phases. I build like 50 at a time. I break that 30, 40, I break that 40 million up into 4 different phases and go from there. And then I would just, the first thing we would do is we'd reach out to the investors and try to figure out how we would structure the deal. That's what we're doing right now. We're trying to figure out on these deals that we're going to hold, we're like, we don't want to do a takeout immediately, because the interest rates are high right now and things like that. But also, if we leave that money in that project, we have the opportunity to pull it out at a later date, tax-free, which is the biggest thing for us. Because, we go out and sell a project and make $1.7 million, but the government gonna take 30% of that or 35% of that. But if we pulled $1.7 million out of a refinance, they don't tax it. It's loan proceeds. And then we could turn around and sell the development later if we wanted to and have a lower tax basis because we've already taken the profit out of the project. Right. I don't know if I answered your question totally, but
no, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. I like seeing the inner workings of your brain of like what you go to first and then next and kind of putting the pieces all together. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. We would go in and figure, the first thing we would do is sit down and determine how many, because we would start from the land. We wouldn't start from a number of units. We would start from the land. Okay, we found this 5-acre tract. How many houses can we put on it? Or how many units can we put on it? And we run our density calculations. We'll look at how much land we got to take out for detention and roads and stuff like that and infrastructure. And then we come up with a number and we run our numbers based off of that. And then that's how we would determine whether or not we're going to buy the land. So they might want 4 million, but I might look at it and say, we only pay 3.1.
Right.
Off on 3.1, see what they say.
Well, I mean, I think the cool thing about working at that number is I don't know how many other people are putting in offers for that much land. The competition probably goes way down.
It does. So yeah, we do have some like we just put an offer in on another acre of land that's down the street from an acre that we already own. And they already had an offer all cash. So we had to come in above asking, and we're trying to see what they're going to come back at and go from there. So, it depends. Like there's certain areas where we don't even have to do those kind of numbers because we've done projects in the area. So we know what's going on. So we already know just looking at the price, if it's a good price or not.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So say you have a big project like that, or one of the ones you're working on, the bank probably would come in with like 75% of that, right?
So if you're just getting started, they're gonna start you out at like 65%
Okay.
LTV or LTC. As you, again, this is an experience-based industry. The more homes you build, the better those LTVs get. I got a lender who, once we can hit 100 homes, they'll give me 95 to 100% LTV. All right. But you got to have, that threshold and get into 100 homes. That's a lot of homes to build, you know what I'm saying? Or a lot of units. It doesn't necessarily have to be homes. If you just built 100 units, we could build a bunch of duplexes. We could build a bunch of fourplexes, triplexes, which we can't do in the city of Houston yet, but we're hoping that they'll pass that new ordinance that'll allow us to be able to do that, because we're holding some lots to be able to do that. We'll run the numbers. So we'll be like, like I said, let's break it down a little smaller.
Okay.
On that 15 unit one, matter of fact, I can just pull up the numbers right here and just go through a live project for you right now.
Sweet.
So we have a 15 unit project. We bought the land for $355. Our total amount financed for the construction loan is $2.5 million. The total project cost is 3.7. We basically need $850,000 to cover everything to get the vertical construction. So that's everything with the horizontal development. So that's that's the replat to split up the lot, getting that approved through the city. That's structural engineering, civil engineering, soil testing. We got permitting fees, clearing the lot, and then site utility development. So going in, putting in the street, putting in the fire hydrants and all of the utilities that we have to put in for the homes and things like that. All of that's included in the 850. Yeah. Impact fees, man. Them things be killer.
Yeah, I've heard those can sneak up on you.
Man, yes, they can. And the city kind of went up on theirs this year. It was like, why is my permitting fees going up? It was like, they done went up on the impact fees. Man, what? Come on, man, I'm taxing. So the construction loan, would be, let me go in here and see what we're running our numbers. So the construction loan would be 2.69 million. All right. We're spending about 180 per unit in this project. And our all-in cost would be 3.5. Wait a minute, that's different. We said 3.7 over here. I'm gonna have to look at that one. This spreadsheet might not be updating. We've been playing around with it because we're trying to see how we're structuring the deal with our investors and how we're going to bring it out. So anyway, so the 2.5, 2.6, whatever we put in there, 2.7, that's the construction. So the bank will fund, if they're going, it depends on whether or not they're going to use the LTV or the LTC. And then you also have to understand like what they're using in their numbers. Some banks, they will only use the construction costs in their LTC. Some of them will use the entire project costs. All right. So what we have learned is we want to work with lenders who use the entire project costs. So if our entire project cost is 3.7 million, then when they come in to run their ratios on the LTC, 65% of that is 2.4 million. All right. So that means that we have to bring, if our construction cost is 2.6, 2.7, we got to bring $200,000 to $300,000 in equity. All right. So that money we would probably go and raise from investors. So that way it's not money that we have to come out of our pocket for. And then we would take it from there and we would go from there.
Right. Yeah. And then I'm sure there's probably a million ways you can structure that with the investors, but like in your perfect world, are you hoping to buy them out? Or is it like you take an equity for a long time? What do you?
It depends on on what we're doing. So if we're selling the project, then depending on where we're bringing in the investors, we might just offer them a return. So let's say we raise. So in this project, with the 300,000 that we have to bring to the table for the construction loan, and then the 800 $850,000, that $850,000, let's say it's 1.5 million, right? Well, it's not 1.5, is it? We have 1,500,000. You know, we might offer them a return of like, you know, 12% or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, so 12% of 1.5 is what? Let's see, do some math.
I can't.
12%, that's $180,000, you know. So we'll distribute that during the sale of the property, you know. So that would be built into our pro forma. So that way, you know, we could see what our profit is. So after we pay out the 180, whatever is left over, that's what we take home, you know.
Yeah.
Now on the rental side, there's a couple of different things that we can do. You know, we can structure it to where maybe we pay them out in year 3. And then we, you know, if we're going to keep the project long term, our strategy is if we're building houses, we typically want to hold them for only 8 to 9 years. Now, I know some people, they'll say, oh, you need to hold them 10. And I'll say, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of tax advantages and things like that, but I'm looking at the maintenance. You know, after 10 years, major systems start to break. And now I got to replace all that stuff. Now I got to include a CapEx budget, which means my cash flows go down. I'd rather sell the asset to someone else or sell the houses off individually and let someone else have to deal with replacing water heaters and AC units and all of those things, because we're already building more stock to replace the aging stock that's coming anyway. So in that case, we might want to pay our investors out in year 1. So then that way we own the rest of the project for the next, you know, 7 or 8 years. You know, if we were doing a longer term hold, like maybe 15 to 20 years, then maybe we'll say, okay, well, let's keep the investors in for 3 to 5 years, pay them out in that 3 to 5 years, and then we own the project for the next, you know, 10 to 15. Because in that case, over the next 10 to 15, we could probably do another 2 refinances and pull money out of the property, you know. And then there's value add opportunities and things like that. So it really just depends on like the structure, how long we're going to hold the property, where do we think we can get the most value out of it. You know, with a lot of these houses, we think that in years 4 and 5 is where we're going to get the most value out. So we'd rather do a takeout and pay off the investors, take the cash flow for the next 3 to 4 years, and then refinance in like year 5 and pull out a nice sum of money in the refinance by letting builders in the area build up the equity in our project.
Got it. Yeah, that's so cool how there's so many different ways that you can structure it. It's only a creativity problem. It's not like a lack of opportunity problem.
Yeah, would you believe I'm learning all this stuff as we go?
You sound like an expert. You've been doing it your whole life. So, I mean.
Man, I'm just a little nerd, man. I like looking at spreadsheets and seeing the numbers and punching this stuff in. And, well, what if we do this? Or what if we do that? You know, I like playing around with it. And if I don't know something, I go and ask people.
Yeah, I mean, that's just shows why you've had success. I think that's the way to do it.
Grace of God.
So, well, a question I have, and you probably get asked this all the time. So sorry if it's redundant, but with the market, the recession, all the news, everyone's talking about what's going to happen. How does this affect your business model? Are you shifting to like the rental market more than just the buy and or build and sell? Like, how are you adjusting, or are you at all?
So it depends on what a lot of people fail to realize is you can't focus on national headlines. You have to focus on what's going on in your immediate area. Real estate is extremely local. In Texas, we have benefited from a lot of companies moving to Texas. The cost of living is lower here. We don't have a state income tax like other states do. You know, we're very business friendly as opposed to, you know, other states. So you have a lot of companies that have moved their headquarters to Texas. So if you have a strong job market, people are still spending money, plain and simple. You know, even with interest rates rising, there are still people buying houses because they want to buy a house. And as long as it's cheaper than what they're paying in rent, they will buy the house, okay? And they could buy the house and refinance when the interest rates go down if they want to, if the interest rates go down. But for us, it's always been location. That's been the main thing for us. So, you know, we we started studying markets back in 2013. You know, the market was just starting to pull itself out of the housing crash. And you know, I've worked for builders who have been the last builder I worked for have been building for 90 years.
Wow.
You know, so they survived the housing crash, you know. So I'll hear guys say, oh man, we got to stop building. I'm like, what? Please, these boys never stopped building. These guys built entire companies just building houses. One of them I worked for, they built houses only in Texas. They don't build it. They're not a nationwide builder. I worked for a nationwide builder, you know, so I know the differences in the games. But in our structure, we're looking at different areas and kind of seeing, you know, what's more advantageous. So like the project I was just talking about, the 15 unit, that was originally a project for sale. It was originally a build to sell project. One of our investors was like, yo, why don't we rent these out? And when we bought the lot, I looked at the rental rates in the area and they was extremely low. I was like, no, I was like, it ain't gonna work. We're better off selling these. Mm-hmm. We'll make more money selling them than we were renting them. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I went and checked the rental rates again and them things doubled. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Hold on, you know, this might be a good rental project. You know, let's build these and rent them out. And we saw that other developers were starting to put projects up for sale. Like they didn't build the project, they just put it up for sale. And so we were like, yo, I think we could have an opportunity here to come in and maybe, you know, create something that could work. And then we got other areas where we'll go in and we'll look at it and we'll be like, okay, yeah, you know, this might be a really good area to sell in. So it just depends on that area and what's going on. You know, there's a neighborhood or an area of Houston that I refused to buy lots in, even when the market was hot. And you know, I get like wholesalers be like, hey man, I got this lot and such, man, you get it for $50,000. I'm like, oh, okay, well, where is it at? It's like, it's a such and such. Oh no, I'm not interested. Why not? I was like, that's a third or fourth choice neighborhood. And they're like, what do you mean? And then I'm like, when I was a realtor, we used to ask buyers all the time, what's your first and second choice for a neighborhood? Wow. And they would write down what are their first and second choices are. We rarely got to a third or fourth choice because they usually found a house within their first and second choice. But during the boom, you know, of 2020 and 2021, there was so much competition in the market. People were getting pushed out of their first and second choices and going to their third and fourth choice, meaning it's a neighborhood they don't really want to live in, but they need a house. Mm-hmm. So, you know, neighborhoods like that, we don't want to be in because I don't want to be struggling to sell a house in an area that no one has a immediate incentive to live in. I want to be in an area where people are like, oh yeah, I want to live over here because they got this brand new park, or I want to live over here because they got this brand new development they building up the street, or I want to live over here because it's close to these bars and whatever. Those are areas we want to be in, and those are the areas that we know that are kind of recession proof.
Right. Yeah, I think that speaks to the point of like, just because the economy's in a recession or most businesses are in a recession doesn't mean that you have to be. It doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen to your business and the actions you take every day, because ultimately I think winners are just going to win. That's really what it always comes down to. They find a way to pivot, to improvise, adapt, and everyone else will make excuses of why it's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, E.T. said it best. You know, when the playoffs start, all of the regular folk are out. Yeah. All you got left is the beast. He's like, you know, so right now, the recession is kind of like the playoffs, right? You know, the boom was the regular season. You had everybody in there throwing up whatever they want to throw up. And now those guys are getting pushed out. Only people left now are the beast. You know, these are the ones who understand how to read and study markets and understand where to strategically place themselves and things like that, and pay attention to trends and see where people want to be and stuff like that. The people who actually do the work to understand how to be good at their craft. Yeah. You know, the Michael Jordans and the Kobe Bryants, as opposed to the the David Mills or something.
Yeah,
I've never heard of, oh, well, David Mills is actually the quarterback of the Texans.
Sorry, David.
He's trash. So sorry, David. You know, you need to be better, bro. Okay.
He'll keep working at it. So one thing that I could see being a new opportunity with the prices, the cost of living, you know, the inflation, whatever, is people are going to need affordable housing. Maybe someone who's staying in like a Class A neighborhood or apartment now can afford that, but wants to have a similar quality of life just without maybe some of the extra pools and amenities and things like that. Is that something you're focusing in on? Do you focus more on like middle income, or do you build like for high income, or when you do your build the rents?
So for us, it just depends on it really just depends on the area and if the numbers work out, depending on what we're paying for land.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm getting the land really cheap and the numbers work out at a you know, like a lower number, like $1,500-$1,600 a work a house, then, you know, we'll do it. But if the numbers don't work, then we just won't do it. It's not really like a focus for us. It's really just, you know, the numbers determine whether or not we can do the project. Because at the end of the day, if we're not making money, we're not going to be in business long. And that's something that I think a lot of people miss out on. I can't remember who told me this, but he said, you got to be able to make money before you can help people. It's like, you can't be out here giving stuff away free if you ain't got nothing to give.
Right.
That's a good point. So for us, it's not really a affordable thing or anything like that. We're looking at the numbers, you know. Now, if I can go into an area and build some houses for and rent them out for $1,200 a month, if I can get the land cheap enough to make the numbers work, then we'll do it, you know. But if we had a project where I think they wanted $280 for an acre of land, and we could put 18 units on it, and the units were renting in that area for $1,700 to $1,800 a month. And when we ran the numbers, you know, after refinance, it just didn't work. So, and we tried to get them down. They wanted 280. We tried to get them down to 240. And they wouldn't take that. They said they wouldn't take no lower than 275 or something like that. So, so we passed on that deal. I think they eventually sold it to somebody else, but it is what it is. We had another deal. It was a 5-acre tract. They wanted $750 for it. We offered them $500,000. They said they wouldn't take anything lower than 680, I think it was. And so we passed on the deal because we're like, we can only do what we want to do at $500,000. So when it comes to affordability, that's the most crucial part, is what we're paying for the initial property acquisition. You know, a lot of people will always hear me say, don't overpay for property. It's the first mistake that you can make, and it's the hardest one to overcome. You know, you might be able to overcome it if you hold on to the property, but do you have the money to be able to pay the taxes for however long that takes? You know,
Right.
So, and holding on to vacant land without it, if your plan was to develop the land in the first place, but you bought the land for too high, and now you think, oh, I'm gonna just hold it. You never had any plans to hold it in the first place. Now, you have guys who literally buy land and hold it because they're waiting for stuff to happen, like a freeway to come through or something like that, you know, but that was their strategy going in. So they already prepared to pay taxes and all of the other stuff. And a lot of guys, when they overpay, they're not prepared for that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So when you're finding land to buy, how do you work with the city in the process of closing on that land? Are you talking to them first to figure out what their plans are and if your permits are going to work out the right way? Or what does that cooperation with the municipality work like?
Yeah, so we so the city usually already has their rules up, you know, letting you know what you can do and what you can do, or what you can and what you cannot do. So we usually already have a general idea. You know, the biggest thing we'll do is we get a survey. Surveys are extremely important when you're doing land development, because or when you're buying land, because a survey can pretty much kill your project. You know, we had a project one time. We had this lot under contract. We got a survey done, found out they had a pipeline easement running through the middle of the property. It was abandoned, but we can't build on it. Like the city's not going to let us build on it. And it's going to cost a lot of money to pull it up, you know, because we don't know what kind of pipeline it was. You know, is it crude oil? You know, what were they transporting in this pipeline? You know, and it was in a prime area, and that lot is still vacant to this day. That was like 6-7 years ago, and it's still vacant to this day in a prime piece of area. So the survey is like the most important thing because it determines, you know, what we can do. When it comes to the city, a lot of cities have a lot of their information online. Like in the Houston area, we have something called the Houston Map Viewer. So we can go on there and find a lot of the relevant information that we need. Like if we need to see if they have water and sewer already out there, you know, because if they don't, then, you know, the city's going to make us extend that stuff, you know, and yeah, they give you like I think it's like a 70% rebate, but now that's stuff that you have to factor into your project, and you don't know how long it's going to take for them to give you back your money because the government departments are slow. You know, we pay attention to like, most cities have what they call a major thoroughfare plan. And they'll have different rules for like what we call a building line, which is just an imaginary line on your property that your building can't cross. So we might be buying a piece of land thinking that we can put, you know, 8 houses on it. And then we find out it's on a street where we have to have a building line that takes up, you know, 30 feet of the property. And now we lost 2 houses off the lot. And so now that screws up all of our numbers and everything. Because if we ran everything at 8, now we at 6, you know, that means we probably paid too much money. So we need to know all of this information up front.
So that's before you even like put an offer in, or do you have it under contract and now you're doing all this diligence, or how does that go?
It could be before or after. I mean, it depends on the area. Like we had a lot that we had already put an offer in, and then the seller was kind enough to call us and say, hey, I just want to let you know the city is planning to extend the street through this property. It was like deading into a street. It was like the city is planning to extend the street and they're going to take 17.5 feet of your property. And he was like, you know, but it's cool. You could still build some houses on it. And, you know, he sent us like a drawing, and I looked at it and I was like, that's not going to work. We're going to lose more. You know, he's not accounting for the fact that there's now an extra building line because there's a street here now. I was like, this is not going to work. I was like, you know, tell them thanks, but no thanks. Now, I'm glad that he was honest enough to say something, because a lot of guys just wouldn't have said anything at all. They would have sold you the land, and then you would have had to figure it out on your own. And you would have ended up buying a piece of land that you couldn't do what you had planned to do. So sometimes you run into people like that. But yeah, you want to be able, usually most of your cities, they have everything online. You go check this out. And if not, you can, most of them have like a phone number or email contact where you can email them and be like, hey, you know, can you tell me about XYZ? And you can go from there. So on the rare occasions that we need to do that, we'll do that. But a lot of stuff we just find really online.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. And as far as like the acquisition side of the business, are you generating leads yourself? Are you working with brokers, wholesalers? What does that look like?
I mean,
All of it.
Sending me a lot, bro.
Yeah.
Realtor, we got email alerts, you know, all that stuff, man. You know, we drive for dollars. One of the areas that we're building in right now, I found that area driving for dollars.
Wow.
We had to sell a bunch of lots because they had deed restrictions. And in the state of Texas, deed restrictions supersede city rules. So deed restrictions say you can't do something, the city cannot override it. It's state law. It sucks because there are areas that are now becoming urban that were deed restricted, and they're trying to preserve the suburban character of the community. But you know what the city needs is densification in those areas. So it kind of sucks, you know, when that happens. But I forgot my original train of thought.
You were
driving for dollars. Yes. So we sold these lots. I just went and hopped in my truck, drove through a new part of the city that I drove through a neighborhood that I had been through, and then I just kept driving north through it. And I was like, oh snap. Oh, they building some houses back here. Hold on, wait a minute. And I knew that, you know, during 2021, a lot of builders wasn't putting anything on the market until it was finished, because we didn't want to cancel contracts because of, you know, the fluctuations in prices. And so we So the only way you could find stuff is if you actually could physically see it. And so we were able to get some really good deals on some land because we bought before stuff hit the market. And then when stuff hit the market, that's when other people started to flock because now they getting the alerts and their emails and stuff like that, and they're seeing it. But we had already bought like 6 months before them, so they didn't know that's what was coming. So, and we also do research like sold permits. We'll look up replats. All of this stuff is online, so I don't really have to leave. I don't really have to leave my house to go do it.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, but even just like the fact that you can go out and just drive in your car and find an opportunity. Like there are so many opportunities everywhere all the time. Like if you look around, everywhere you look, there's millions of dollars. Like that building, driving down the road, you look at an apartment building, that's 20 million right there. There's a grocery store right there. That's worth however many million. There's money being made all the time everywhere. And there's money being stored in value everywhere you look. You just have to be able to know how to see it, which is, that's this high income skill that you've learned is how to identify an opportunity and then either give that to somebody who knows what to do with it or yourself who's going to go out and extract the value from it. I think it's the coolest thing.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I always tell people, vision is something that a lot of people don't have. I mean, you look at guys like Steve Jobs. He's a visionary. He comes up with a whole touchscreen phone, and they're like, that'll never work. Now, what do we all have? Touchscreen phone. He comes up with the tablet. And they told him that was a bad idea, that nobody would ever want it. Now what? Most of us have tablets running around. I bought one for my daughter several months ago. So. Being able to see things that others can't see is an essential skill to being a really good developer. Like I'm always, one of the things that I tell people is when I first started out in the architectural world, one of the first projects we had worked on was there was an old Southwestern Bell they're AT&T now. Southwestern Bell is who bought AT&T and then took on AT&T's name. But Southwestern Bell was a telecommunications company in the South. So they have these buildings in a lot of cities that are like damn near bunkers, like 3 feet thick walls, all this stuff. So they started selling off some of these buildings. So this one developer, they bought one of the buildings. It was in the heart of the Heights, which is a very nice now it's a very nice and exclusive area of Houston. It wasn't 20 years ago, but it's become, because it's very close to downtown. So anyway, they bought this 3-story building. It had a basement, it had a diesel engine in the basement. They pulled all that stuff out, gutted the building, turned it into 12 luxury condos, and then took the parking lot, demolished the parking lot, built townhouses in the parking lot, took the basement, turned that into a parking garage for the luxury condos, right? So they took a commercial building and turned it into a residential project, made millions of dollars off of it,
Yeah.
So other people would have just looked at it and said, oh, that's just a commercial building. But I see stuff like that every day and be like, oh man, I could turn that into some condos.
Yeah. And that's the thing I think most people miss is it's not just like the ability to look at one thing and figure out a way to do it. It's like I imagine your mind is just constantly looking at every single building and project, trying to figure out like what the highest and best use of that. It's like you're always looking for, it's not a one-time thing. It's like to me, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like a common trait is you're constantly looking for what it could be. And your brain's like running a formula of like this plus this equals this and trying to plug in all the pieces.
Yep. Yeah, I'll go to other cities and do the same thing, man. Been in other cities looking like, oh, they doing it. My girlfriend lives in Dallas. I remember going up there and I was like, oh, okay. So they taking these lots, putting 4 townhouses on them. I'm on the MLS looking. I'm like, I don't know. This land ain't looking very humble right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is.
Let's say like hypothetical scenario, somebody comes to you with a project and they've done a certain amount of things to like package it in a way that you can tell there's a lot of opportunity there. What would they have to do in order to for you to be willing to partner with them on that project? For example, like let's say they had all the permitting done and figured out, or like they already had the architecture plans, or they've like, do they already have to have the land? What would it take for you to partner with somebody who maybe doesn't have the level of credibility, but maybe brought some opportunity to the table? Or would that be a scenario that could ever happen?
So if they already have like the architecture and the plans and stuff, I just tell them, what are you waiting for? Go build the project. You don't need me.
Okay.
You've already done most of the work. But
like, what about a bank maybe wouldn't loan them the money because they don't have like the work experience?
Oh yeah, I would just tell them to partner with their contractor. That's one of the easiest ways to do it. Your contractor should already have, unless you're managing the project yourself, your contractor should have enough experience to where the bank could leverage their experience. You just make them a partner in the project. They're getting paid anyway. So you just make them a partner in the project and you just go from there. Maybe you give them a little bit piece of your equity and you go from there. Anything to get the project done, because that's the way. But me and my partner are actually, we just came up with this new thing where now we're trying to find landowners and who technically they don't want to sell, because they want to build a project, but they don't have the network to get it done. So we're like, well, look, we'll partner with you and share our profits with you if you'll deed the land over to an LLC with all of us into it, and we'll develop the project, build the project, and we'll assign a value to your land, and we'll give you also a piece of the profits and go from there. So yeah, that's only locally in the Houston area that we're doing it, because we're not ready to spread into other cities just yet. We want to get our roots established here and really grow something here, and then we can start jumping into other cities, because you don't want to grow too quick, because then you don't have enough. If you pour your foundations too quick and you don't allow them time to cure, and you just start building on them too quickly, the foundation crumbles and the whole thing falls out. The whole house is done, So you don't want that to happen in your business. You want to, lay your foundation, give it time to cure, and then start to build on it and grow from there. So yeah, that's one of the things that we're looking at. We had a guy recently approach us about partnering up and doing some bigger projects. So we've been working with them on some stuff and trying to figure out how we can make some things happen. Our goal is we want to build entire neighborhoods and stuff like that, and we want to own a couple high rises.
I love it. Yeah, I think that's a really valuable thing for the world. The world needs people like you that can think big and have a big vision and do things that other people don't even think are possible. So.
Oh yeah, man. I'll tell you a couple, maybe like 2 months ago, there were some guys that announced that they were building a $300 million high rise in one of the exclusive neighborhoods of Houston. And I had made an IG reel about it. Man, when I say they told me up in the comments, we're supposed to be impressed by a $300 million project. I'm like, I see what it is. They know that they can't do that, so they can't wrap their mind around it. Like, I saw 300 million, I was like, I can do that. I was like, that's nothing. I was like, we could do that. We can do a $300 million project. We could do that probably in the next 10 years. Probably even sooner than that, but to an every average day person, they hear 300 million. Oh, that money could have been used for the poor. I'm like, please, if you had $300 million, are you giving it to the poor? Okay, shut your mouth. Okay,
that's such a simplistic way of looking at it, that the person that would say that is just, they don't even know the first thing.
Well, a lot of times we love to tell people what to do with their money, but if we not doing, my whole thing is when I hear people say stuff like that, I'll be like, well, are you giving money to the poor right now with the money you have? Oh, well, if I had a little bit more. No. Listen, if you don't do it now, you won't do it later. That's just plain and simple. Same thing we tell people, in all things. If you ain't doing it now, if it ain't a habit for you now, it won't be a habit for you later. That's just the truth.
Yeah, people get this. I mean, part of it is not their own fault. I think it's like brainwashing from an early age, but it's like they don't understand that, like, being broke or poor is one of the most selfish things you can do. How are you supposed to take care of the people around you, or, provide or donate? Like, if money's not everything, the only reason most people get out of bed in the morning when they don't want to is to go make $12 an hour. So if it's not that important, like,
I've been there.
yeah, like what is your whole life based around? You know, it's just a distorted paradigm that people have, I think.
Paradigm. That's a fifth grade word.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just to kind of wrap this up, for someone that is looking at all your success in this incredible business that you have, and it seems like overwhelming, or they're not sure where to start. You got an architecture degree, and you know there's so many different things you're doing, and it can be a lot just to listen to all of it. What would be your advice to someone that's wanting to get started or has aspirations to do something similar?
Start with one project. As our coaches used to tell us in college, whenever we were down in the game, take it one play at a time. You can't score 21 points in one play, you know, but you could come out here and get 10 yards on this play, get 20 yards on that play, you know, get 40 yards here, get 10 yards here, touchdown, okay, get a stop. You do the same thing, another touchdown. Next thing you know, it's only a 7-point game. You get another stop, you tie it up. You know, now you're in a good spot. You know what I'm saying? Now it can go either way. You get another stop. Now you take the lead, you know, and you win in the game, you know. So I think a lot of times we have people that they want instant success. We didn't have instant success. We went through a lot of failure, and learned a lot. And we still go through failure, and we're still learning and things like that. But I think the important thing is being hard-headed when you face adversity and have that mentality that I'm just not going to give up. And since me and my partner are both athletes, you know, we already have that mentality either. Anyway, you know, we look at it, hey, we down, you know, 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. We not losing. We finna figure this out. All right, give me the ball. We gonna figure it out. All right, you know what I'm saying? And that's something that we live by. It's something our coach, our defensive coordinator used to tell us in college all the time. He used to say, hey, look, when we would get to asking too many questions, and he'd be like, hey, figure that ish out. So that's just how we live now. But I would just say start with one project. We started with a renovation. That's what we started with. And then we did another renovation down the street from that one. And then we built some duplexes, and now we're building some townhouses, and now we're jumping into bigger things and stuff like that. But it's been a progression. It wasn't something that happened overnight. I think we started those renovations back in like 2018, 2019. So now you see here we are 2020, but we actually tried to kick off our first project back in 2014. So it's not like it just happened. We learned a lot from that project and how it failed and how to vet investors and stuff like that, you know, and then we regrouped and tried to learn and figure out different ways to get there. So just, you know, start with one project. You know, you can't hit a home run every at bat, but you know, you might end up like Kyle Tucker and hit 2 home runs in the World Series. Maybe we end up, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, I mean, Aaron Judge broke the home run record, you know, this year. He didn't hit a home run every at bat, but he kept swinging. And you keep swinging, and before you know it, you look up, dang, we done built 100 homes. we on a high rise, dang, we this and that, you know, but that stuff takes time. So start somewhere, get good at it. You know, one of the guys I follow on Instagram, Mitt215, he always says, get good at making money first. You know, so if you can get good at making money first, the rest of it will fall into place. You know, a lot of guys, they think, oh, I need this, I need that, I need this, I need that. Man, look, learn how to make money, all right? And then go out there, start small and grow. A lot of the guys that we work with on my design company side, that's how they started. They started small, one house, you know, one project, and they grew their business into something that was much bigger.
That's awesome. I think that's incredible advice. Listen, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I think basically every minute of this podcast is packed with knowledge and value. Anybody watching, like, pause the video, go look it up, learn all about it, keep watching, because I think there's just so much to unpack here. And you did a great job of laying it out in a way that makes sense to me, at least. I think that'll translate well So I really, really appreciate you coming on. And like, where can people find you? Social media, like where's all that stuff?
Yeah, so IG neighborhood developer, um, LinkedIn, my name, Garland Harris Jr. I don't really like adding people on Facebook. I feel like that's more personal. You know, I post
Yeah.
pictures of my daughter and stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, you can follow my website, middlehousingdesign.com. All of that stuff has my contact information. You guys can see all of the things that we're doing right now, like our crowdfunding offering that we just did and I spoke about earlier. You know, you'll see the next. We've been kind of tight-lipped on the next couple of projects because we're still working out the details on. You know, I don't really care about people like, oh, how come you don't announce more stuff on social media? You're doing a lot of stuff. I'll be like, cause I want to make money quietly.
Yeah. I
You
get you.
know? Yeah, I was like, I like that quiet money. You know, there's a lot of guys I know around here who got money. You'll never know them. You know,
Yeah.
I don't care about stunting for the gram. But yeah, Instagram, LinkedIn, and my website.
All righty. You
I
heard
think
it
I'm on
here.
Twitter too. I think I'm on Twitter. Yeah, Twitter at Hood Developer.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good. Garland Harris Jr., everybody. Get wealthy.